Okay, welcome to this video for math for business and finance students and math application students. Here is chapter 2, the word problems, the odd number problems that are assigned in your study guide. So we'll pick up with the next problem to be done. Okay, problem 2-31. Michael Wittry has been investing in his Roth IRA retirement account for 20 years. 2 years ago, and immediately when I read that, in the back of my mind, I registered 20 years and then 2 years ago, so that's also 18 years, like 20 minus 2. Remember, I just pick up information that's in the back of my mind. I just fill in the blanks. I try to create additional information. It may or may not be useful as we go through the problem, but that's what I kind of do by being active in the word problems. If you're trying to do word problems just by reading them and then mimic or copy, you're not going to get them. You have to be actively involved with the information. So 2 years ago, his account was worth $215,658. Okay. After losing 1/3 of its original value. Now the thing that hit me with that is that if it lost 1/3, okay, that means what remains is 2/3. All right. Okay, it then gained half of its new value back. Okay, what was the current value of his Roth IRA? Right, so you can kind of do this problem two different ways. You can look at it from the loss side, or you can look at it from what he has left side. And I think the difference in doing which way you choose, I mean, again, you're going to arrive at the same answer, but which way you choose is going to determine how big the numbers you're going to play with. Okay, I'll try to work through both, and so that you can see what I mean here. Okay, and also this problem is going to be a little unique, I think, and you'll see that when we arrive at the answer. Okay, so if he has $215,658 and he, after losing 1/3 of its original value, so what I can do is I can figure out how much losing 1/3 is, okay, and then whatever I get for that answer, right, I'll subtract it from the 215,658, which will give me the amount that's remaining. Okay. Now I said two different ways of doing it. Well, we actually did the math over here by saying, well, if I lost 1/3, that remains, so there's 2/3 remaining. So I could take the 215,658 and multiply it by 2/3 and come out with that same exact value. Okay. Remember, here we're figuring out how much the loss is, right? And then we have to subtract it from the 215,658 in order to get what's left. But back here, when I was reading the problem, after I said after losing 1/3 of its original value, I subtracted, right at that moment in time, I subtracted the 1/3 from 3/3, which gave me the 2/3. All right, so it's just it's a different way of doing it, and both ways will arrive at the same exact answer. Okay, it's just a matter of, like I said, probably big or small numbers here. But doing it both ways, you'll end up with the same thing. So let's treat it from this perspective. Okay, so I have 215,658 times 1/3. And that means I end up with 2 times 1 is, 215,658 times 1 is 215,658. And then remember that any whole number, to create a fraction, you put it over 1 because that's the same number. So 1 times 3, the denominators are 1 and 3, gives you 3. And I divide 3 into the 215,658. So let's see how that works. 215,658. And I'm going to divide by 3. So 3 into 21 goes 7 times. That's 21. I'll bring down my 5. 3 into 5 goes once. That's 3. I have 2 remaining, bring down my 6. 3 into 26 is 8. That's 24. 2 remaining, bring down my 5. 3 into 25 is 8. That's 24. 1 remaining, bring down my 8. And 3 into 18 goes 6 times evenly. So that means the account lost $71,886. Okay. Now, how much is that after the loss? So I'm taking my 215, 658, and I'm going to subtract the 71,886 to know how much is the value of my account at that moment in time. So 6 from 8 is 2, 8 from 15, remember I'm going to make that 5, carry my 1, 8 from 15 is 7, that's going to be 8 from 15 again is 7, 1 from 4 is 3, 7 from 11 is 4. And then I'm going to bring down my 1. So the value of my account after the loss is $143,772. Now, after the loss, it has $143,772, and now it says it then gained half of its new value back. Well, how much is 1/2 of 143,772? Now again, I could do this 2 different ways. I could multiply by 1/2 and then add it back to the 143,772. Okay. Or I can think of it in terms like this. Let me get a different color. I can think of it in terms, well, if I'm going to add half of the new value back, well, let me use this as a simplistic example. I don't want to use the big number, 143,772. Let's say I have, this circle represents 10. Okay, so everything inside the circle is 10. And that's the whole piece. Okay. Well, if I want to add half of that whole piece back, that means I have 1 is the whole piece plus the half I want to add back, which means I would have 1 1/2. Okay, so instead of, notice I'm doing the math, the addition here in more simpler numbers and a little bit easier thinking. So if it's telling me I want to add, it then gained half of its new value. Well, its new value is the 143,772. And if I get half of that, well, then what I could do is I can multiply by 1 1/2. Let me erase that so that it's easier to see. I can multiply the 143,772 by the 1 1/2. Why? Because the 1 represents the entire value of the 143,772 in addition to the extra 1/2. Okay, so let me clean this up a little bit here. Get rid of this. Okay, so in order to do that, all right, I can do this in a couple of different ways. I can convert the 1/2, well, 1 1/2. Okay, so 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3, so that's, I'm going to change that to convert the mixed fraction into a fraction of 3 halves. So 143,772 times 3 halves. Erase this. Okay. And I can cancel out here. 2 into 2 goes once because this is an even number. And then 2 can go into this entire number. Let's see, into 14, that's 7. Into 3, that's 1. Carry my 1, that's 8. Carry my 1, that's 8. Carry my 1, and into 12 is 6. So I have 71,886 times 3 in my numerators, because remember this was all over 1, and if I do that math, and I'm going to do that on the calculator, times 3, and what I end up with is 215,658 over 1. And like I had said, what was interesting about this here problem is that he started out with 215,658. So he lost 1/3 of its value, and then he gained back half of its new value, and he ended up in the same exact place as he was before. And that's a little bit interesting, but that happens. If you don't do the math, you don't realize what actually is going on. So that's a side story. So I'm going to, if you understood this, now I'm going to work through the problem again, but I'm going to work through it from the perspective of what happens if we look at it from 2/3. In other words, doing the math first. So let me go down to a new screen here, new slide. So I have 215,658, and I'm going to multiply that by 2/3 in order to get my value after the after the loss. So I know that I can cancel out here. 3 and the 3 can go one time. Okay, remember this was all over 1. So 3 can go into 21 7 times. And again, we did the math on the other slide. So that's 1, 8, 8, 6. Oops, let me make sure that's right. 21886, right? Here's where we did the math right in here. And then we take the 21886 and we multiply that by 2, and we end up with the 143,772. 772, and we're back to where we were before, okay? Where we can multiply it by 1.5, and we end up with our original amount, 215,658. Okay, so you see the difference here. Over here, well, actually, let me draw it out real quick. If I took a circle and I divided it into 3 parts, okay, and here's the part where I lost 1/3. Okay, so originally this was 215,658, and I lose 1/3. So how much is the value between this 2/3? Well, that ends up being 143,772. Okay, and then so that's because I'm taking this value here is 71,886. This is 71,886. And this is 71,886. But when I add these two numbers together, these two, I end up with that amount. So I can take the 71,886 away from the 215,658 and end up with that. Or I could do the math and just add these two together and come up with that. And then all I need to do is just multiply by the 1.5, and we discussed how I did that with 1 instead of 1.5, instead of multiplying by 1/2 and then adding it back into this value, okay, which in both cases it ends up at 215,658. Okay, I hope you understood that. If not, go back and rewatch it, and then if you have any additional questions, feel free to ask. Contact us by clicking on the Contact Us link on when you log into your Penn Foster account, or telephone an instructor, and we'll be glad to go over it with you. So this video is now 14 minutes long, so I'll move on to the next problem in the next video.